Street Fighter 6, Street Fighter 6, Street Fighter 6, one of the most positively received fighting games in years, and a title that continues the franchise's amazing heritage. Rich with popular newcomers and old favourites, this fighter's roster includes a nice mix of personalities and fighting disciplines to choose from. However, as is usual with games like this, we have continued to remain hungry to see newcomers enter the fold. After Akuma's recent reveal trailer showing us what the Master of the Dark Shadow is going to look like this generation, leaks have made their way onto the internet, apparently informing us who each of the game's Season 2 DLC fighters are going to be. While it is always important to take news like this with a pinch of salt, it is worth noting that this information is coming from the very same person who previously accurately leaked the entire Street Fighter 6 base roster and the game's Season 1 DLC fighters, months and months before the title even hit the market. So as far as leaks go, this one, in my opinion, is as believable as they come. Holding all of these thoughts, join me today as we discuss the 6 characters allegedly set to join the fray, what I think of their inclusions, and how they will affect Street Fighter overall. Hello ladies and gentlemen, Big Daddy Top Hat here. These are the supposed Street Fighter 6 leaked Season 2 characters. Yeah! Perhaps the most polarised out of all the names leaked to apparently be making a comeback very soon, we have the despotic dictator m.bison returning to action. While no doubt one of the most popular Street Fighter characters ever conceived, I can see why some people have mixed feelings regarding bringing him back into the fold. First off, as far as the series lore goes, m.bison is dead, and many would like it to remain that way, as after all, this wouldn't be the first time this military maniac would have risen from his grave. The Street Fighter timeline is a rather confusing one, with the game's story events starting in the 1987 original game and progressing to Street Fighter Alpha, Street Fighter 2, Street Fighter 4, then 5, then 3, then 6. What a chronologically confusing mess. After being killed at the hands of Akuma at the end of Street Fighter 2, he would return using one of his replacement bodies by the time Street Fighter 4 came around, with Ryu allegedly stopping him coming back to life for good after destroying his newest body and sealing him away with the power of nothingness at the conclusion of his arc in Street Fighter V. This canonically then explains why Gil and the Illuminati are the main villains in Street Fighter 3 and why JP takes the helm of main antagonist in Street Fighter 6. m.bison is gone, and a lot of people have a desire for the franchise to introduce new powerful villains, even if the series seems to struggle to find anyone who can fill the Shadaloo gangster's shoes. I'm somewhat in the middle of this debate as part of me acknowledges he is one of the most iconic video game antagonists of all time. However, I always enjoy seeing something new too. One thing I must add though is although this character is currently dead, he isn't truly gone, as even in Street Fighter V, his spectre continues to haunt Ed. Due to being positioned to function as a future replacement body for the dictator, Bison's soul threatens Ed during a nightmare. So holding these thoughts, this actually provides the series writers with a few different ways of reintroducing him. Firstly, he could just somehow get another replacement body, matching the one he had previously, or secondly, he could get a completely different one, becoming significantly younger or taking over the body of a woman. Cammy, for example, was another of his replacement bodies, so such an idea wouldn't even be off the wall. As for a third option, they could bring him back as Phantom Bison, some sort of ghostly apparition with fighting capabilities, who is on a rampage to take back what he sees as his, the body of Ed. Each of these options allow Capcom to bring this beloved character back without breaking the franchise's established lore too much. Then again, let's be honest, lore is a pretty low priority in fighting games, so I imagine there is a huge portion of people out there who want m.bison to return no matter what. All I can say is be careful what you wish for. For example, somehow I wanted Palpatine to return. Hit that subscribe button if you hate the Star Wars sequels as much as I do. Yuck. Joining this iconic insidious killer, we have another unforgettable Street Fighter 2 villain, the terrifying, narcissistic and psychotic Spanish bullfighter Vega. Loyal to m.bison and Shadaloo, this dangerous claw-wielding madman is infamously so in love with his appearance that he fights in a mask to protect his beautiful face. But bearing in mind by the time we get to Street Fighter 6, m.bison's right-clawed man would have aged up quite a bit. Is it time for this legendary character to have some new elements brought to his story? Well, personally, I think it could be interesting, as Capcom have already evolved Vega in the past in video games that are non-canon to the Street Fighter story. Take Cannon Spike for example, the largely forgotten Dreamcast shoot 'em up where you can play as Cammy White and others taking on waves of enemies and intimidating bosses in a completely different sort of experience from what we would usually get with these characters. Vega, under his Japanese name Balrog, also features in this story, but he is different from the Vega we know. Going by the identity of Fallen Balrog, Vega seems to have ditched focusing on his exterior beauty, with him instead leaning fully into his psychotic part of his personality. Possibly older and no longer donning a mask, Fallen Balrog is a terrifying goth who is more dangerous and slash happy than ever before. Gone is his Achilles heel and desire to protect his good looks at all costs, and in his place stands a man who is as ugly on the outside as he has always been on the inside. Since Vega is apparently set to return, like with all other Street Fighter 6 roster members, Capcom are sure to refresh his look. How far they are willing to go with this though is a different question, but I'd love to see them do something daring with this character beyond a title as obscure as Cannon Spike. If by this point in the video you are still around, one would imagine that you're a big fan of fighting games. So with that said, I would like to help you out and provide you with some links to buy fighting games for dirt cheap. I can get you Ultra Street Fighter 4 for less than $2.50, a price that is 92% cheaper than on Steam. 49% off of a deluxe edition of Street Fighter 6, 82% off Street Fighter 5, or 78% off of the 12 game anniversary collection. Get these games and more at bargain bucket prices and support the channel by using my instant gaming affiliate link via the pinned comment. Happy shopping! Next up, let's talk about the women who are set to be making comebacks, starting with fan favourite professional wrestler r.mika. r.mika is an extremely interesting character to see brought back for Street Fighter 6, because if you know your franchise history, you will know that around the time Street Fighter 5 was launched, this young lady was steeped in controversy. Outrage would break out when gamers started to notice that the camera cut away from certain in-game actions engaged in by this grappler. For example, her butt slap, which could be seen in the Street Fighter 5 beta, had been censored from view. Capcom would later admit that they had added the change to the game to appeal to so-called Western sensibilities, which would of course only make a lot of people angrier, considering how opposed to censorship the majority of gamers are. r.mika would not be the only victim of such actions, as Cammy's camera angles would be edited to ensure that you could see less of her more racy side too. Holding all of these thoughts, this raises a lot of questions with her return for Street Fighter 6. First off, Capcom certainly haven't shied away from saucy camera angles in their latest offering, with Cammy appearing the most provocative she has been at any point in the franchise, and don't even get me started on what they've done with jewelry. As for r.mika in World Tour mode, Zangief mentions that she is now a champion pro wrestler, and she can be seen in the game fully clothed and training heavily in the snow. So we already know she is stronger canonically than at previous points in the series. When it comes to her in-game design though, just like Cammy and Jewelry, I foresee her Street Fighter 6 representation as a playable character being potentially more alluring than ever before. This was a character who was designed to thrive off of sex appeal, so I can only see them doubling down on that, analysing the current direction of the series. From one woman to another, next we have Sakura. Yes, I called Sakura a woman. Rising up in the 90s as the most popular newcomer in the Street Fighter Alpha sub-series, the schoolgirl-loving country of Japan would adore this character. But considering the huge time gap between Street Fighter Alpha and Street Fighter 6, she is by this point in the story a fully grown-up adult. Which raises the interesting question: how would her life have unfolded? Well, in early appearances, she appears obsessed with Ryu. She uses the same fighting style and can replicate many of his impressive techniques, despite only being a teenage girl. You could argue that with this sort of setup, she could have easily been positioned as the powerful face of Street Fighter 6, but instead we got the egregious TikTok dancing Luke. Ha! Gay! Oh, I dislike this cringe-inducing, annoying Gen Z orientated character. Ugh. How much more interesting would things have been if they built everything around an older Sakura, or even Sean, another character who was positioned to have a lot of promise further down the story canon. As for Sakura, we already saw her as an adult in Street Fighter 5, so all we should expect really is a more aged up version of such a design. Personally, I think both her and Sean should have been a part of this game since day one, as both are more interesting than Luke and Jamie in my opinion. Speaking of Street Fighter 3, we may still not be getting Sean from that game as a playable character anytime soon, but it seems that if the leaks are to be believed, we will be getting the return of Alina. As far as Street Fighter 3 characters go, aside from Sean, I would have preferred to see the return of Dudley, but I guess it doesn't make sense to do that yet, considering they have only just introduced the boxing utilising Ed to the Street Fighter franchise. I'll be completely transparent with you, I don't have a whole lot to say about Alina really, as I don't think she adds much to the table, as there are plenty of other characters I'd rather have seen come back instead. Dan Hibiki and Sagat are still solely missed, for example, but I guess it's nice to hear that the game will get some Street Fighter 3 representation, even if it's not the Street Fighter 3 representation that I want. Finally, as for the 6th apparently leaked fighter, it will be a completely new one, who has never been playable in a Street Fighter game before. According to the leaker, such a combatant is either African or from the Middle East, which would suggest they're likely dark-skinned. Obviously, only time will be able to tell us if such leaks are true or not, but despite not being 100% satisfied with this supposed Season 2 lineup, if this does transpire to truly be the next 6 Street Fighter 6 characters, I for one will be happy with 6 such individuals. Don't forget you can grab bargains on most video games and support the channel by using my instant gaming affiliate link, or if you want to support me in a more personal way, then you can support my work over on Patreon. I look forward to talking more Street Fighter with you very soon, so with that said I'll see you in the next video. Cheerio!